episode of the podcast, Come Over for Dinner. I'm so glad you are joining me today. I have a very special guest in the studio. His name is George, and he is a little bit unlike some of my past guests. He is single, in his 20s, and he is going to tell us all about how to host at an apartment when you're single and in your 20s.
Absolutely.
So first of all, George, tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, just about my life, about what I like to make. What do you want to know?
Okay, the one thing I know about him, he is a college graduate, and he is a coach on my son's football team.
Yes, so I do coach high school football, and I'm an assistant coach. So I work with wide receivers and defensive backs, and then also I help out with the junior varsity for that team as well. So busy schedule, really fun, and it's a new program, so there's a lot of development. Guys are not the best yet, but there's a ton of potential. So
he is taking the what's that phrase where you're turning coal into gold or something?
I know what you're thinking of. I actually can't think of a phrase right now, but I know exactly what you're thinking of.
Well, okay, and I guess I should mention he also has a job, so his super busy life, and so tell us about when you have company over for dinner. You do go home after working all day and you invite people over. This is very fun. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So, excuse me. Being in my 20s and having a lot of friends in the similar age range, it's not having people over isn't established. Like having families over, I always think of hospitality when I was little, and my parents would have people over for a meal on a Sunday afternoon, or we'd have our grandparents and extended family over on Tuesday nights or something. And my mom would put together a production, like huge. I have not reached that level yet.
Wow.
Like the stuff that she would do. And I remember at the time thinking, oh man, mom is making me do so much work and I feel like I'm being overworked. And looking back, I was like setting the table and maybe unloading a dishwasher while my mom is making a 5-course meal.
Right, and had been working for hours ahead of time.
And then, she makes something incredible and then we all eat it in like 10 minutes and are underappreciative. So nothing extreme. Like when I host, it's not nuts. So I had a friend of mine from work over recently, and the goal was I just wanted to have him over, hang out with him. We hadn't had an opportunity to talk much outside of work, and we both knew that we liked watching some specific movies. So we decided to watch a movie, made a soup, and we hung out, ate soup, watched a movie, talked for like 2 or 3 hours. It was a really fun night, and it was just I think having food was basically a really good way to intro someone to your house. Like I could have had them come over for a movie and maybe made drinks or something, but like taking the time to make food, but then also sit down, eat, talk before we watched a movie.
Right.
That was it just made the experience way better. And I mean, if you're busy, you don't always have time to make food, but I was like, yeah, this is 100% worth it.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you are sitting around sharing a meal together, you get to, like you said, you get to have conversation and get to know that person and a lot more about them than if you're just chit-chatting in between scenes of a movie.
Yeah. I also think, I don't know what it is, but I also think eating food makes people open up a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's just they were hungry and weren't as talkative and they feel more comfortable after they've eaten, or what it is. But something about sitting down at a table and eating food, people typically start to open up a little more and be more comfortable with, like, so we have some pretty different opinions on different things, whether it's movies or just life in general. But being able to sit and eat, like we were able to just start talking about these things really comfortably. And there wasn't, I don't think there would ever be animosity between us because we're friends, but it felt so easy and natural to talk about things. Or if I just brought that up, if I just brought that up randomly, I think it wouldn't have worked out.
Right. Right. But, you're just like over popcorn. So what church do you go to?
Yeah, exactly.
Why?
I want to know everything about your core foundational belief system. Like, no, not at all. But yeah, the food made it easy.
Right. Food is very familiar and comforting.
Oh, yeah.
And hopefully most people have an experience around a table where they're actually having conversation. And if not, it is a joy, usually.
Yeah.
Even if they're uncomfortable at first, they usually start to relax. And enjoy
100%
agree. Okay, so tell us about what you served. You said you made a soup. Tell us about it.
So, yes, I made a soup. And it is what is the specific name of it? Because I change it a good amount. But a creamy sausage and potato soup. And I originally wanted to try the soup at one point because my family was trying Whole30.
Okay.
And I don't remember why. It was years ago. And I saw this recipe and I was like, okay, well, this soup is sugar-free and I don't know, free of whatever you can't have on Whole30. I wasn't on Whole30 at the time. I was eating whatever I wanted to.
Some food.
But I was like, okay, if I made this,
eat.
everyone could have it. But basically, I describe it as a coconut milk sausage potato soup. And
Sounds amazing. Is it dairy free too, I guess, if you're using coconut milk?
Yes.
Only?
Yeah. So the coconut milk, just basically just substituting for any dairy that you would have in there. But it's also supposed to have bacon in there. But I found bacon to be like a little not even frustrating. It's more of just a hassle to have another skillet going with bacon cooking and then putting that into a soup. So I never use the bacon.
So to simplify, you just leave it out and it tastes just as good.
Yeah, just as good.
How is a man saying this?
What'd you say?
How is a man saying this? This might be a first ever.
Yes. Well, okay.
Mark this down on your calendars.
I would like to.
First time a man said it's okay to leave the bacon out.
I would like to clarify that I will take bacon on or in just about anything.
If someone else cooked it for you and gave you bacon, you would put it in the soup.
Oh, 100%. Or if I had like bacon bits on hand, I'd sprinkle those on top.
So this is his cleaning tip. Don't cook the bacon.
Actually, we could go with that 100% because I also cleaning up after you cook bacon is the worst.
Yeah, that's very true.
Very true. So anyway, I cut out the bacon, but so potatoes and sausage and coconut milk are kind of the primary ingredients. And then I guess do you want me to go through the ingredient list?
Oh, you don't have to. I can post it, but
Okay.
just that general description sounds delicious. I will post it on comeoverfordinner.com. There's a page that has all the recipes, so I'll put it up there.
Okay, because I also
mention all of your changes.
Yeah, I make a ton of changes to it.
Okay, tell us.
So you have chicken stock, and while you're browning the sausage in one pan, usually the primary soup pan, I have a second pan that I pour chicken stock into. And I usually double the chicken stock. I want my soups to be way more hearty than almost every soup recipe you can find. Like, I don't want to dip my spoon in a soup and then come up with nothing on the spoon. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I want it to be like super thick.
Mm-hmm. So almost like a chowder.
Yeah. So I usually, I think it calls for like 1.5 pounds of sausage or maybe just 1 pound of sausage. I put in at least 2 pounds of sausage. And then
if you're skipping bacon, you might as well.
I know,
add
yeah,
more meat.
yeah. I'd like to point out I am adding extra meat.
Okay, now it's all making sense.
And it's still simpler. No, so I'm browning sausage in one pan, and I think there's a couple of seasonings that I'm going in. I actually change those periodically depending on what I have in my cabinet. I don't put in like cayenne or paprika or anything crazy, but just like I don't know. At one point we had dried chives, so I just started dumping those in throughout the whole process. It was actually really good.
Sounds
Basil
good.
works really good in there. Obviously, I'm using salt and pepper, but you pour all that, whatever you want to season your sausage with. That's browning. And then there's two 32 ounce, I think it's 32 ounce containers of chicken stock. Maybe it's smaller, but I've got chicken stock, and then I cube up all of my potatoes that are going in there, dump them into the chicken stock, and I let that come to a boil. And then with the sausage, I'm cutting up onions, I'm cutting up celery, which celery is not a thing that the recipe asks for, but if it doesn't change the flavor,
sauteed into a stew or soup, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I tried carrots one time. Don't do that. Because carrots, the flavor's too strong and it doesn't work well with everything else.
Okay.
But I'm putting up, I'm cutting up celery and onion, throwing that into the sausage, browning that, and basically waiting for that to get done. And so then once the potatoes have come to a boil, the recipe usually calls for like a partial mashing. So drain the chicken stock into the sausage and then, kind of mash up the potatoes to some level, but they're like, you don't want the consistency of mashed potatoes.
Right. But you're adding like a thickener to the soup almost. I have a soup recipe where you do take some out, blend it or puree it, and then put it back in.
Yeah.
And so it makes the texture of the soup just a little thicker. So I think that's kind of the same idea.
Same thing, except I want my soup to be as thick as possible. So
you're smashing the whole pot.
No, even worse. So the coconut milk that I'm adding in, I pour that into a Ninja blender, and then I start taking the potato that is now slightly softened and just blending it into and I don't let the potatoes get too soft. So even when it's blended, it's not as...
It's not a puree.
Yeah, it's not a puree, and it's not like...
It's chunky.
Yeah, it's still chunky, but I'm getting it way more mashed than the recipe calls for. Did this recently, loved it. It was incredible.
You're going to have to type up all these changes.
I know, I will have to type up all these changes. But so you don't have to put them in a blender. But
maybe you could, I mean, a blender works really fast and really well, but I guess you could also take like a potato masher or something.
And when you do, when you do the hand masher, you also mash fewer of the potatoes, so you end up with more chunks. Some people like having the potato chunks in their soup. Mm-hmm. So it is, to each their own on this part. But then I put it all together, and then I usually let that sit on the stove for, 30 minutes getting hot. Or not, more simmering. I guess not. I don't want it to boil or anything.
Right, just kind of letting the flavors blend and it to heat up.
Yeah, but then once you have that, you're pretty much done, and you could eat it right away.
So easy.
It is really easy. And also, usually I make this when I'm hungry already, and so, I usually wait 15 minutes, take a bowl, and then keep letting it simmer for another 15, 20 minutes.
By the time you're ready for your second bowl.
Yes, then it's done and ready. Yeah,
really
exactly.
done.
So it is pretty simple. And I do make another change I do is I don't go with normal sausage. I go with spicy Italian sausage because I like
that flavor would be good.
And it makes it. I think adding the spiciness makes it feel a little bit more like a Tuscan soup. Mm-hmm. Like Tuscan potato where you add kale and stuff to it. You could easily do that with this, and it would cross over super well. So yeah, that's kind of the overview of.
Okay, this sounds amazing and perfect for wintertime.
Oh yes.
What do you serve it with?
Or
do you just eat it?
Well, I just by myself. When I'm by myself, I just eat it.
You just take a bowl and spoon and go after it.
Yes, but when I probably the nicest thing that I've done with it is I pour a glass of red wine, and then my roommate makes a lot of sourdough, so we'll have sourdough on hand, and I'll have sourdough bread with the soup and have a glass of red wine. I feel really bougie when I do that.
Homemade sourdough?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. It's nice.
That's
and
amazing.
I'm not even the one making that sourdough.
Did his mom teach him how to do it, or did he learn?
My mom taught him how to do it.
Your mom did?
I think so. I think that's right.
All right. Let her know she needs to be a guest on this podcast.
Okay, I will. But yeah, so that was a really, I guess, enjoyable experience. And depending how formal you are or informal, you can dip the bread in the soup. It works great. Or you don't have to do that. Whatever your taste.
If you don't dip it, do you serve it like with butter, salt, and pepper, or do you butter and honey, or do you just eat it?
I usually just eat the bread
because you're usually dipping it in the soup.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, not formal.
Single
guy in my 20s.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah. But I think it's incredible. And then when I had my friend over the other night, I think we just had. What did I have in the fridge? I think I just had soda in the fridge. So it was way less formal. Mm-hmm. But again, when it's two guys in their 20s, I don't think another guy is coming over expecting a sit down.
If they're getting a hot bowl of homemade soup, I mean, there are some guys who cook, but there's a lot of guys who don't. So the amount of times, the highlight of their week.
Yes, the amount of times you hear people my age just say food is food. So if food is food, and if it's marginally better tasting than other food, oh my goodness, game changer.
Game changer.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, okay. While we were talking about bacon, it did make me think of a tip. Have you ever, so when you think about cooking bacon on the stovetop and you're doing the strips, the cleanup is quite a bit, or can be, and then it's slow. Have you ever taken a package of bacon, like the whole thing, and chopped it like into bite-sized cubes, put it into a pot which the sides are high enough that when it splatters, it's not going over the sides. You put all of that into a pot and turn the burner on. I don't know. There's really not a set thing. At least medium, probably medium high would go faster. And you just keep stirring it here and there. And it looks, okay, so it looks like it will never brown. So in the beginning, you're just kind of breaking it up because, well, my bacon is usually coming out of the fridge, so it's cold. And as it starts to simmer, there's a lot of bacon grease. And so it almost looks like it's boiling, which is weird. But there's this magical time right at the end where it all starts to brown, and you can create an entire package of browned bacon bits, like cooked bacon cubes, almost instantly.
That actually sounds
in
incredible.
10 minutes or something. I don't know. I've never timed it, but it's very quick.
I should do
and
this.
There's no cleanup.
The next time I make the soup, I should do that because, again, the recipe calls for bacon. I just never do that.
Well,
so I should totally.
You will think, what is happening? This is boiling. Like, this is not browning. But watch it, like, especially when you do see it kind of boiling, keep stirring it and watch it, and all of a sudden it starts to brown. And it goes really quick. So I have a slotted spoon that, as it's right there perfect, because pretty quick it'll be overcooked. So when it's just right, I'll start scooping really, really fast and put it on like a plate with paper towels and, just let it drain. But then just
okay,
use it
well,
in
I'm
your
going to give
soup.
this a shot.
But you know what we do with it? So I'll do that with an entire package and then put it in like a Ziploc bag or a container, and we'll pull it out of the fridge and use it in eggs in the morning, or we make really quick breakfast burritos or put it on top of salads. You just have a bag of cooked bacon in the fridge. It's amazing.
That is so
bacon
smart.
Cubes.
I'm going to steal that idea. That's so smart.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, okay, well, thank you for sharing that. And yes, I'm going to have to get you to type up all of your changes because it sounds like an incredible recipe that you've created.
Well, I'm hoping too. So anyone who looks at this recipe, they can take it and modify it however they want. So I make a lot of modifications, but I really like that about particularly soups. Mm-hmm. But I like a recipe that is good. Like, it would be incredible if you just made it the way exactly the recipe describes it. I also think it's pretty good the way I make it.
Yes.
And if someone else, takes this base recipe and is like, okay, this, 90% of this I like, I'm going to change something else. It's super easy to do.
It's still going to be good.
Yeah. So, I think that's the case with most soups, unless they're like really difficult. But that's part of the reason why I like this recipe so much, because I never follow this recipe exactly to a T. And it's always close. Yeah. It's always close to the original, but it's different and it's still delicious.
Okay. Well, tell us where you find cooking inspiration. Do you have a place you look do you like to cook?
I actually would say I don't love to cook, but that's not true. I like to cook specific things. So obviously this soup, I like to make a chili. I make sourdough pizza. It's usually actually things that I had really positive experiences with when I was little. So every Friday night, my mom would make us pizza growing up, and she would try, over the course of years, she tried different recipes. So for years we had kind of a deep dish, just white flour pizza. It was incredible. And then she went to a sourdough pizza that was thin crust. And I remember the first week she did that, all of us kids were like, no, we missed them. We're all upset.
Right,
and then,
any change
yeah,
to kids,
but then we ate we ate the sourdough pizza, and guess what? It was so good.
So delicious.
And then when she went back and was making a different kind of deep dish, we were all kind of like, well, Mom, but you've perfected the sourdough pizza. Should you do this? And then the next pizza was incredible. But basically we had positive experiences with pizza my whole life. Which I feel like most people do, but still.
It's a classic favorite.
Yeah, and so when my mom said, hey, I'll teach you how to make sourdough pizza, I became the Friday pizza maker for our family once my older sister went to college for a few years.
Smart mom.
Yeah, I know. And so there I was thinking, look at me, I know how to make pizza. My mom's doesn't have to make pizza anymore, and I'm making pizza for the family. And it was one of my chores on Friday afternoon, but it was great. So I can make a decent sourdough pizza. We argue about this, who's the best in my family at making it. We all think we're the best. So, but
your mom is a genius.
Yes, yeah.
Not only have you learned how to do it, but make it a competition between the kids.
I know.
They're all fighting over who gets to do it.
We actually have family friends, and we had their kids over one time because they all learned how to make pizza from their parents. And so everyone in my family was having a pizza cook-off. Unfortunately, I think I was coaching basketball at the time, so I couldn't make it, and I missed it. But there was like 6 people in my mom's house making pizza and competing and arguing about who was best.
If I was there, I would have won.
And it would have been pretty clear cut too.
Clear cut. Clear winner.
Yeah, no competition.
The cream rises to the top.
Every time. So that was, but anyway, pizza. So I make that. The soup, my mom has always been really good at making soup. And so I also make a chili. And I don't even vary from that recipe, is straight from my mom. Don't vary from it because I can't top it. And I'm like, I will just recreate this every time. So I don't necessarily like to try. I won't Google a brand new recipe typically and be like, okay, I'm going to make this. But if I've had an experience with a food before, and I knew that I liked it, and think that I could either replicate it or maybe slightly make it better, then I do like to cook. So that's kind of the inspiration. And then also I'm just surrounded, my mom, my sisters, they're all incredible cooks. And sometimes you just get hit with this thing of like, man, everyone in my family can make food. I should probably be able to. And so I'm trying to dial in a couple of different things. So all those three I just mentioned. I'm also, over the past year, really gotten into making steak. So I make steak periodically. And at one point before our old grill broke, I had a method on our grill where it was perfect.
What?
But grills are so difficult because they change. Every grill is different.
That's true.
And
you have to learn your own.
So then you have to go dial it in on someone else's grill, and that never quite works. But anyway, so the combination of good experiences and then also feeling like I'm not able to make as much as the rest of my family, and I need to, got to stay above them. So,
are there
just
any
kidding.
other competitions besides sourdough pizza?
I think that's the one that we argue about specifically, like by recipe, and we all have our caveats. Like my older sister, she makes an apple pizza and I think a barbecue chicken pizza, and she says, okay, those take the cake. And I'm always like, those aren't really like they're pizza, but they're not a standard pizza. And you're kind of disguising your crust with barbecue sauce or other flavors. If you just want a go-to pizza, red sauce, cheese, and then standard toppings, the quality of my crust is just going to knock everybody out of the water.
Okay, now I have to try this pizza. Next time there's a showdown, tell me when.
Yeah, you'll be the first to know.
I will be there for the showdown, and I will, do a blind taste test.
Well, the only way you get to come to the showdown is if you're making pizza as well.
Oh,
so you'd have to, you'd have to enter the competition.
Okay, your mom is going to be on the podcast. She's going to share her recipe,
and then you can steal that.
Start practicing using it.
Exactly.
I need a sourdough starter.
Hey, I have sourdough starter in my fridge.
Now your roommate makes sourdough bread. I guess you use it as well if you're making sourdough pizza.
Yeah.
Okay.
He makes bread relatively frequently. I'll just come home and there's flour everywhere and bread.
That's amazing.
And our sourdough starter is like cut in half. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have a name for your sourdough starter?
Oh no, not at all. No.
A lot of people do.
No, I'm not a namer.
You're not a namer?
So
has anyone else tried to name your sourdough starter
not mine,
for you?
But I think siblings have named sourdough starters. My siblings name everything. So cars, computers, sourdough starter, everything. I just look at it and say, oh, my sourdough starter is doing well or it's dying, right? Those are the kind of the two things you say about it. And it's like, if it's doing well, you just keep feeding it. If it's dying, you probably haven't fed it in a couple of weeks. So then you pull it out, feed it, keep it in the air. And it's just sourdough starter.
Right. Okay. Well, I might consider naming your sourdough starter.
Feel free.
If I get a batch, I might have to create a name.
Feel free.
Okay. What is your best advice for showing warm hospitality when you do have guests coming into your home? Okay.
Well, I was trying to think through this actually. Like what are the things that I do? I actually think the best tip is to have, people come to your house and say, would you like a drink of water or can I get you a drink? And I remember in college, a friend of mine who was really good at having his college friends over, he always had, I think it was like the little, not 12 ounce, like the 8-ounce containers of Coke in his fridge. And every time he came over, he'd say, hey, I can make you coffee. I can give you a Coke or I can give you water. And as soon as you went in, it wasn't just, can I get you water? And you're like, yeah, I'll take it. It was like you had options and there was something.
You could choose your favorite drink.
Yeah. And between those three, almost always someone is going to be like coffee or Coke because, it's like a little more special. And I specifically remember when going over to his house and he was so consistent with what he had to offer. It was really like oddly welcoming. And the fact that you knew that he took the time to have coffee and Coke just on hand for those situations was really nice. And so I've tried to do a decent job of replicating that, where I have, more often than not, I have the little containers of Coke in my fridge, sometimes Dr. Pepper, and then I'll try to have something else, and then obviously water. And that's like a really simple thing. But I remember when I was little, actually, I read this book about people who like did everyday jobs and set themselves apart. And there was like this guy who worked at a grocery store, and he would, in everyone's shopping bag after he bagged their groceries, he would put in like a little saying, and it was always uplifting, motivational. And his line was always, there's this small town shopping center. His line was always 3 times as long, and they'd open other lanes and no one would switch because they all wanted to see, hey, what was the saying of the day?
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember there was the other one kind of leading up to this one was there was a taxi driver in a big city. And when you got into his car, he had done things like he had drink options. And I think this is more standard now, but at the time he had just gone above and beyond to make sure everyone who got into his taxi felt very cared for and felt like it was, a pleasant experience rather than just a mode of transportation.
Right.
So obviously when you're having people over, it's not like you're taking them from one place to another or bagging their groceries. Like there's some more permanence to that. But I think that too has kind of impacted it, where I was like, okay, my thinking is along those lines of how do I make people feel extra comfortable when they come into my house. And it's kind of also like there's that movie trope where you get home and you crack open a beer, and when someone comes into your house, like you want them to feel comfortable enough that they can crack open something and it doesn't feel overly formal, unless your goal is to be super formal. Right. Mine is not.
Most of the time unless it's a formal dinner party or an elegant evening, usually just having people over, you're right. They want to be relaxed and comfortable, and it's informal.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously too, your attitude, if you have a really relaxed, friendly attitude, they're going to feel super comfortable. But there are little things you can do to supplement that. So stole that idea from, I guess, that book and also my friend in college. I try to have something on hand that I can offer people that is different but pleasant and kind of nice to have, and maybe, I guess, special or more special than just water. Mm-hmm. And also if they want water, I give that to them as well. Right, I'm not withholding the water. Sorry, it's only Coke or Dr. Pepper here.
You'll have to pay for the water.
Yeah. And I will admit that I am not as consistent as my friend was. So I have a mini fridge in my room, and I try to keep that stocked to some degree. When I moved into my most recent apartment, I kind of fell off the rails a little bit because at my old apartment, it was a little harder to host people. And so I didn't have people over as often. And then recently I've been like, oh, my new apartment is really nice to host people in. I need to get back into the swing of having it stocked. So I would say this past year I haven't done that as much, but now that I'm having people over again more, I'm trying to do that again. So it's really nice to have something on hand to offer.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And just your point of making an extra bit of effort really does bring people, it just makes them feel welcome, like you're saying. I mean, the grocery store story made me think about, I was actually just grocery shopping yesterday, and I've noticed, and I'm sure it's because people speak to I don't know what they're called, but the person there at the self-checkout. I'm sure people speak to him all day long, and they just start to tune them out, because the last 2 times I've gone through there, I've said something to the guy standing there, like, thank you, or, how's your day? Or I don't even know, just a comment as I'm walking by, and nothing in return, like just stone cold silence. And it's just odd. I'm not used to that, I don't know if it's different. Again, it's probably just he doesn't even hear anymore, because if somebody walks by and says, thanks, have a great day, it's just like I hear that 100 times, during my 8-hour shift. But the antithesis of that, before I moved, Sam's Club was the big warehouse store in our town. And there was this one older lady there who every time you walked out, at Sam's and Costco, they have to look at your receipt and put a little highlighter check on it, I guess, I'm not sure why, but they just kind of glance at what's in your basket and compare it to the receipt. Every time you got to her and she said something like, well, how are you today? And again, it's kind of the typical fine, good, how are you? Every time you said, how are you back, she would always say, blessed and highly favored, every time. And you could tell she was a Christian lady. But every time she did that, it made me stop and realize, or just have that thought of, how often do I respond like that? It doesn't matter. And not every day working at Sam's Club as an older lady do you feel wonderful and great and just happy to be alive. But every time, no matter what her day was like, she was blessed and highly favored. And sometimes she'd throw in an extra comment, but it made me, yes, it kind of gave me that ability to self-reflect and say, is that how I feel about my day? You know, no matter what I'm going through or what trial is in my life, big or small, am I still saying I am blessed and highly favored by God? And anyway, just it going back to having people into your home, I feel the same thing. Like a lot of times we're inward focused instead of outward focused. And this lady or the people in your stories were very outward focused. They were very focused on showing love to other people.
Yeah. And I think it's it's not necessarily hard, but it's different too, to think like, how would I want to be treated if I walked in to like someone else's house? And I think going back to my friend who in college, I would go to his house and be like, oh, this is like, at the end of the day, this is how I want to be treated, right? And so I haven't changed anything that he did, but my thought is, if someone comes into my house, how would I want to be treated?
Right, you're trying to be a good host.
Yeah, imagine if the lady at Sam's Club was like, how are you? She's like, oh, today's not that great. You're kind of like, oh, I kind of don't want to ask her how.
Or she doesn't say anything.
Yeah, she doesn't say anything. You're kind of like, well, okay.
Well, that was weird.
Yeah, but she sounds super positive back, and it just brightens the day. So
yeah, it does. It brightens the day. For sure. Okay. What is your must-have kitchen item?
Oh, this I have.
You've been thinking.
Okay, I've been thinking about this for a long
pondering.
time. I've actually known what my must-have kitchen item is like, or I've owned it for a little while. I've known what it is for the longest time. So it's a fry cutting tower that you can buy on Amazon for about $30. I wish I could like hold up a picture to people listening.
Okay,
but
describe it.
So it's a cylinder, like a rectangular cylinder upright, and it's got a cross grid of metal blades at the top of that cylinder.
Okay.
And then there's like a sleeve of sorts that is solid plastic that fits over it. And so you could like put a potato on top of the metal grate and then put the sleeve over the potato and like basically hammer it down with your hand, and it just like cuts the potato into a strip of fries. Like,
how hard do you have to hit it down?
I mean, for a potato, you have to hit it pretty hard. I never use it for potatoes. I think people are like, oh, if you want to make fries, that's the only thing you can use it for. Anytime I'm cutting up onions or bell peppers or any vegetable that I want to just have into little cubes, I will use it. And so like I've watched people cut an onion. It takes them forever because I'm trying to cut the onion into the little cubes. I cut the onion in half, set it crossways, so that when it goes through a grid of blades, all the onions separate into like little cube pieces. And then so you cut it in half, bang once, bang twice. The whole onion is now cubed. So that's a huge time saver. Then my bell peppers, I just cut the size off the bell pepper, put them in there, hit it down. And so it turns making like omelets or cutting the onions and celery up for my soup I just described. It turns all of that so fast.
Since it goes fast, are you an onion crier? I wonder if that would really help people who are.
I guess I'm not really an onion crier. I worked at a restaurant in college where after about 10 minutes of dicing onions, I would start really feeling it.
10 minutes is a long time.
Yeah. But even so, when I do use this thing, I never even feel like I'm cutting onions.
Done in a second.
Because you're just peeling an onion, then you cut it in half, put it in, bang, bang.
Right.
Work is done.
Wow.
It's incredible. It's a huge time saver. I don't think people realize how much time we spend cutting up vegetables.
That's true.
And I realized that like one of the things I don't like about cooking is spending time dicing up vegetables.
So does this one have different size cubes? It's just one.
Just one size.
And it works for everything that you
so far. Do. Yeah, and it's not big, but it's also not super small. So when I was in college, I would make scrambled eggs and sausage 2 or 3 mornings a week, and I would put bell pepper in it every time I had peppers on hand. And they're small enough that they're not annoying to chew, but they're small enough that you can chew them, but it's not too big that it's like, man, oh man, what's this huge piece of pepper doing here? And it's not like long strips, which I think those can be frustrating to have in food too. So it cuts time out of cooking. You cut so much time out of cooking. And I love that because then I get to the point where I'm actually making the food, not prepping my food beforehand.
The ingredients.
Yeah.
You're actually seeing it simmer in a pot really quickly.
Yeah, and my roommate, again, he and I both love this tool. We've given it as a gift at Christmas time to multiple people. And maybe it's just us, or maybe we haven't described how multi-purposeful it is. But so far, everyone that we've given it to doesn't use the tool, does not like it. They never use it. Yeah. What? And so both of us are always kind of surprised and shocked. And we're just thinking, what?
Do you have you given it to family members or other college or young adults?
Yeah, college age people. Yeah. And so far, it just has not received use. And we've heard various reasons as to why, but none of them have stood out in a way where
maybe they just don't cook. Do they do?
I'm pretty sure they do.
Ramen noodles.
I'm pretty sure they cook.
Huh.
So, but the tower stands useless. So maybe this is specifically marketed towards guys who, because I'm assuming guys probably are more like me and don't want to spend time dicing vegetables.
Shortcuts.
Yeah, but it's a shortcut that doesn't hurt your meal at all.
What brand do you use?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It's white and it's green and it's on Amazon.
Okay,
and it's like $30. I'll send you a link.
Okay, send me the link. Okay, wow. Yes, I need one of these in my life.
Oh, quick story. So my roommate had one and I had one, and I thought mine had gotten lost in a move, and his recently broke. And we've been cutting our vegetables up recently. And every time we cut them, we comment to each other. We're thinking, man, if only we had a fry cutter. And we were reorganizing our kitchen, and in a drawer that we store a bunch of stuff we never use, we found it like pushed way far back.
It was like Christmas.
Yes, it was. We were so excited. So the next time I'm making this soup, the onions are going to be done so much faster.
Okay, so this just happened.
Yeah,
you have yet to be able to.
We just found it probably 3 days ago.
Piece of equipment,
which really inspired me because I knew I was going to be talking to you, and I was thinking,
like favorite kitchen item right here.
I honestly should have brought it in so at least you could have seen it,
right.
But
that's okay.
I'll send you the link.
Okay, for sure. Well, you cooking and your mom teaching you how to cook reminds me of a story too. Long time ago, I talked to a fellow mom at a school where my boys were, and when my kids were growing up, I had all of them in the kitchen trying to learn various things. And she had 2 sons, and she was, she was just we were just talking about how to get kids more involved with chores and helping around the house. I'm not sure the exact beginnings of the conversation, but the culture that she had come from, men did not cook. The women did everything. And it was just maybe kind of I don't know if there's still cultures that hold on to that. I think that times are changing. But I just told her, I said, well, imagine you not doing everything for them. I mean, your hope, I guess, is that they have a wife one day who steps into that role and who does every single thing always for them. Wow. But imagine that they don't have that for a time, and there's a time between your house and them, hopefully being married, and they're a college guy or working like you are in an apartment. And what do they feed themselves? How do they feed themselves? Do they go out to eat 3 meals a day? Can they afford that? And let's say they do get married. I mean, I know I'm a mom of 5 kids, and there was so many times that I had morning sickness or the flu or whatever. And if my husband was completely incapable of cooking anything for 5 children, I mean, yeah, you can survive. But he knew how to make soups from scratch. He calls himself a scratch cook. He doesn't follow recipes or bake or, But at some level, it's good to know how to cook something. For you, your mom taught you how to do sourdough and soups and chili. And, for my husband, he learned, his mom was a great cook too. And somehow he picked up how to do scratch soups and other things, a few other things. So I encouraged her, you really don't want to make them handicapped in that way, really, where they just cannot function. During that same time period, this was 20 years ago, but during that same time period, my youngest sister graduated with a girl. She was an only child. Mom and dad did everything, just treated her like a princess. And she ended up getting married, and she called my sister over and asked her how to boil water and cook an egg. And she had to go over there and just show her how to use stove buttons and turn on, how to, it just made, anyway. So my point in all of that is the finish to that story was week or two later, I had another follow-up conversation with this mom, and she told me that she had both boys come in the kitchen with her, and she taught one how to make hamburgers, and I don't remember what the other one made. But she was so excited about it, and they were too, that they were learning how to just do some basic skills on the using a stove and cooking for the family. It was just really exciting for them. Maybe kind of like when your mom handed off you making pizza for the family on Friday night.
Oh, for sure. I think about anything. Well, I think cooking for kids in general, and then probably especially for a lot of guys who just, if it wasn't something that was super normal for them to be in the kitchen, it's super foreign. And coaching football for a school with a really new program, it's like any new skill. Like we have new guys step on a football field, and the past 3 years we've had people who've never played football before, and they're just really not. It's the opposite of confident. They're unsure of the rules. They're unsure of their own physical abilities. They know they should be coordinated, and they're kind of realizing that they're not coordinated. And we have guys who will throw a football to, and I know that kid's going to drop the football. Mm-hmm. And it's consistent. Like that kid will drop the football this time and the next time. But as the season goes along, you start having breakthroughs, and there's just a comfortability. And the players themselves might not realize it, but at the start of the year, they've never thrown or caught a football with anyone. At the end of the year, they've been doing the past 12 weeks of practice every day or a game, except for Saturday and Sunday. And there's before practice, you're throwing a football. You and your friends are talking about football all the time, and then you have a 2-hour practice every day where you are playing football or learning about football. And you don't, I think especially, well, no, I feel like this is everyone. To some degree, when you're learning something new, you kind of hope you hit this transcendent moment. And I think that does happen when you learn like you get to a level of mastery. But development and just being comfortable with the sport, those guys come back the second year of playing way more comfortable, much more able to catch a ball, much more able to tackle somebody. And I think that's kind of, it transfers really to any area in life, but I see it because I coach football. But being in the kitchen is the same sort of thing, where growing up before the sourdough pizza, I knew how to make scrambled eggs, but my parents never really, they worked with my sisters a lot because my sisters were really interested and I wasn't. But I think at one point my mom, kind of along the same lines, thought, okay, George needs to know how to make something.
Right.
And she was like, what would be where would we start? Mm-hmm. And so she taught me how to make pizza. And so then I was using a bunch of the stuff in the kitchen that I had never used before. Like I'd never put anything on a baking stone before.
Right.
And, I'd seen my mom use it, but I hadn't ever thought about it. Mm-hmm. And now, and not that a baking stone is difficult because it's literally just a stone you put bread on, but it's unfamiliar.
It's a foreign object.
And so just learning even a couple things, and I think I've only mentioned 4 different types of things that I do, but my level of familiarity is so much higher, mm-hmm. And it would make it easier down the line. If I wanted to try something new, I could a lot more easily because I have some level of confidence.
Right.
And I haven't achieved mastery at all, but it makes it more doable.
Mm-hmm. I think your analogy is perfect because with football, you're going to drop the ball, but you have to do it over and over and over. And I have cooked for years and I still drop the ball, but that's okay.
Yeah.
You pick it back up and somebody throws you another football. You have another chance.
Well, and I know too.
And you get better and better.
Yes. And I know looking back, if I were, anyone, I think most kids will say this, probably especially most boys, but they'll just say, oh yeah, my mom is the best,
Sure.
No one can top my mom.
Right.
But I know that my mom pretty much hits a home run every time she makes food at this point. It's just, she could make anything. I'm like, wow, how is this so freaking incredible? Mm-hmm. But I do remember I was 4. And I think when I was 4, it was the last time my mom made something where, maybe that's not true. There's been 1 or 2 instances where there was something that wasn't good. But she would make it be like, yeah, guys, this is not good. We're going to have something else. So she was so aware, she knew it, but that was so rare. But when I was little, I think around 4 years old, we were not consistently, but periodically there would be a meal where we were like, this just doesn't.
It wasn't a home run.
But when I was talking earlier about levels of mastery, something happened after I was 4 years old where she did transcend. And it was kind of a shock if there was anything that was less than great, because most of the time we would sit down.
Her skill level had improved just because she did it so much.
Oh man, yeah. And so I always think too, every time every time people ask me, and it's actually often the football players on the team, like, Coach, what are you going to go eat for dinner tonight? I was like, oh man, I have to go eat my own cooking. And not that, and like, is it bad? Like, actually, I don't think it's that bad, but I'm comparing it to what I used to get every single night. And I'm like, why am I eating this? I just want to go to my parents' house. But hopefully maybe someday, even if it's just 4 or 5 dishes, I'll get to the level where I will love those things so much because I got good at them. But yeah, I would say for anyone, like even if it's just a couple of things, being familiar, so valuable.
Yes.
So yeah, you'll get better.
Yes, for sure. It is true that boys always say, my mom's cooking is the best. My son, Lex, let's see, what number is he? My 4th child, 3rd son. My twin sister, he was over at her house, and I think it was cinnamon rolls that she had made, and she'd made other things for him. And, I hope that he had manners enough not to comment and say, well, my mom's is the best. Let's hope he didn't say that. But she said that the time she knew she had arrived was he was eating, I'm pretty sure it was cinnamon rolls. He was eating these cinnamon rolls, and he's like, okay, these are better than my mom's.
The amount.
She was like, I knew at that moment I'd arrived.
The difficulty to say that, to admit to something, that's hard.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I'm not sure. Don't tell my mom I said this.
So have you been working on your cinnamon rolls recently?
It really made me want to step up my game. Like, okay, I've got to break away from the traditional recipe and try some other cinnamon roll recipes and have Lex over every Saturday or something to do a cinnamon roll trial. I've got to win back his admiration.
So on the topic of cinnamon rolls, another thing that I think my mom makes better than anyone, but hers are incredible. However, I've never had yours. I've never had Ruth's. So cinnamon roll cook-off?
Ooh,
yeah,
that's a great idea.
That would be so fun.
Cinnamon roll cook-off. I'm in.
Also, blind. So
Okay.
the different trays, we don't get the label whose was who.
No, A, B, and C.
Yeah. And that way, people like Lex can't be
right.
They can't be just,
Can't
I
be
know
biased.
this is my mom's.
I know this is my mom's. I have to say it's better.
Yeah.
So your mom's, is it sourdough cinnamon rolls?
No.
Just, okay,
Yeah.
yeast. That's the one I do, a yeast cinnamon roll. So,
I think it would be fun.
okay.
Yeah, we should do that at some
right.
point.
Cinnamon roll cook-off it is. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It was so much fun to chat. The football players should be inspired by, you should tell them that you're on a podcast. They should all listen to this.
I don't think I'll do that.
They're inspired for their future wives. They need to learn how to cook something.
Well, actually, so
Soup.
3 of the guys on the team, I told them last year that at some point this year, I would have them over for just a bowl of chili, basically.
Yeah.
So I've got all the ingredients in my house. I've got to make the chili, and I've got to have chili with a couple of the guys. So several of the players are going to have food that I make, and then we can, we'll talk about my skill after that.
Is this your mom's chili?
Yes, it is.
I think maybe you have to ask her. We might need this recipe too.
Okay.
If it's not top secret,
Listen,
locked in the vault.
If I can share that, I would love to give it to you, but I need to come back on to give it to you.
Okay,
No, I'm kidding.
Round 2,
Yes,
we have
round
to
2.
wait till next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, to be continued. All right, until next time, bye.